As we're watching Donald Trump's health decline precipitously, we are starting to see more and more of what Joe Biden should have done for Kamala Harris, and that is that the Trump regime is pushing JD Vance to the forefront. Years before the next presidential election, we're seeing headlines, news stories, polling out about JD Vance running for the presidency in 2028. They're already trying to position him as the inevitable next guy, as the successor, right? There was a poll that came out, just last week or so. CNN was really talking it up. Harry Enton from CNN said that JD Vance is running well ahead of the rest of the potential Republican field for the 2028 GOP presidential primaries. Yeah, no shit. Historically, the vice president does typically poll higher than everybody else years in advance of the primaries. Nobody else has started campaigning or put their name in the hat yet. So, of course, this is, right, fork found in kitchen. But we're starting to see more of this. Friendly Honey Badger said that one of her relatives had read it in a news article. CNN and other kind of corporate mouthpieces of the regime who are disguising themselves as legitimate media operations are just pushing JD Vance, sane washing him, normalizing him, setting the expectation that he will be the next president. And to me, I find that really interesting on a number of levels. I mean, I understand that part of what they're doing is they're trying to drum up excitement amongst the Republicans because Donald Trump himself is deeply unpopular, right? And not only that, but Republicans are about to get their asses handed to them in the 2026 midterms. So they're like, don't think about the midterms too much, but get real riled up for a future JD Vance presidency. And that's going to get people to turn out at the polls because there's not excitement for Republican candidates for the midterms. And also, of course, we can't discount the ways that Project 2025 and Peter Thiel and everybody who funds and backs JD Vance as their puppet is pushing him to the forefront. They want him. They're entirely, I was going to say something a lot more disparaging, but let's just say they're entirely synthetic candidate, right? JD Vance is whatever Peter Thiel wants to shape him into. That's why we've seen so many different iterations of JD Vance over the years, starting with him being, right, trying to be a progressive. He is the kind of chameleon, the kind of politically ambitious man who will do whatever, shape himself into whatever he thinks will get him power. He doesn't have any earnest convictions at all. I honestly don't feel that much different about JD Vance and Gavin Newsom. There are so many politicians who have earned that moniker of being a slimy politician. They are willing to pivot on any issue as long as the polling suggests that it will be advantageous to them. I don't think that JD Vance actually has any scruples, actually has any earnest convictions, worthy ones or entirely reprehensible ones. So when he's saying shit like this last week,
in the United States of America, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore.
that's a man whose wife and children are not white, by the way. I don't actually really think that JD Vance is earnestly married to white supremacy. I just think he thought that was going to be a political winner for him. So he's perfectly willing to take up all of these white supremacist talking points, shape himself into whatever Peter Thiel wants, as long as he gets, all of the backing, as long as he gets to be platformed, as long as he gets the candidacy. I think that he is willing to take up whatever position MAGA wants him to. I really don't think he has any earnest beliefs about this. I don't think he had some evolution. I don't think he got red-pilled. I think all of his political opinions are entirely manufactured. They're entirely a veneer behind a craven man who's desperate for power. I don't think that makes for a particularly compelling candidate, even amongst MAGA. They don't like JD Vance. The only reason this recent CNN poll said that he gets 51% of the vote is because it's years and years and years ahead of the election, and there are not other viable candidates. And you ask people this far out, and they're just going to pick a name that they know. It's not because anybody in MAGA actually likes JD Vance or that he can control the cult of MAGA at all. In fact, myself and a number of other people have been arguing this entire time, I think a lot of people are really scared about what happens after Donald Trump, an old, frail, sundowning man who clearly has the dwindles, expires. He is mortal just like the rest of us, and his days are numbered. So what happens after him? either while he is still in office and JD Vance becomes president. I actually think that might be an ideal situation, because everybody will get a real big dose of what JD Vance is actually like, instead of these kind of staged little, like speeches that he gives or whatever. They'll have to watch him try to govern and be deeply, deeply slimy and uncharismatic. But I know a lot of people think JD Vance is smarter than Donald Trump. He's more sophisticated. He's much younger. I see a lot of people making commentary from the left who are like scared of JD Vance, but I think that they are really missing the fact that MAGA is a cult. And I know that there are powerful billionaires in and behind and, supporting the regime that want JD Vance because he's their puppet, because they can mold him into whatever they want with the promise of money and the position of the presidency. But that doesn't mean that he has the support of MAGA, of the people. And like Knitting Cult Lady says, you can't just pass off a cult to whoever. They won't be able to command the same kind of loyalty that Donald Trump did. There's no way that JD Couchfucker Vance is going to inherit the cult of MAGA. It's not happening, y'all. And I think too many Americans have this false belief that those in power are actually in control. Those in power will fear us if we come together and we are angry enough and we are organized enough and we choose to exert our power. That's why MAGA has been successful. That's why you see corporations who have been bending the knee, bowing to fascism, because they saw the election results. They believed that the people were behind Donald Trump. Dictators have this veneer of the support of the people. They have this rhetoric like, oh, I have a mandate from the people. Donald Trump never had a mandate. He never even got a majority of the vote, and his popularity is steeply declining. But the reason that so many people got behind him is because they were afraid of the cult of MAGA, not of Donald Trump himself. And we've got to remind ourselves of that at the end of the day, it is the people, not at the end of the day, it's always the people who have the power. It's just whether or not we're willing to flex on it, right? It's whether or not we are willing to come together, aggregate that power, and exert our will. MAGA did that really well. They did it January 6th insurrection. They've been loud, angry, organized. They turn up and vote. They show up and intimidate. They scare businesses, right? Think about all of the ways that MAGA has really quickly jumped to have attacks against corporations that they thought were too woke. The kind of rapid, violent vitriol that you see from MAGA. Corporations, institutions are afraid of that. It's not Donald Trump himself. And JD Vance is not going to inherit the support of those people. And more than that, I think there's also the fact that JD Vance represents the kind of TPUSA, kissy kissy with Erica Kirk that a lot of other people on the right don't like and don't want. We need to remember that there are at least 5 warring factions within the Republicans. And then there's the fucking groypers way, way out to the right. And they have support and they have power. And these guys do not like JD Vance. They think he's a smarmy, arrogant little upstart. They don't like him. They don't want him in power. He can't command the respect from within the party. He cannot command the respect and the loyalty from MAGA. So yeah, I get it. He's spewing absolute straight up Yahtzee propaganda now.
Where you have another few million immigrants come in from countries that are totally culturally incompatible with Germany, then it doesn't matter what I think about Europe. Germany will have killed itself.
Shorty Pants there has to get more extreme with his rhetoric, because that's the only option available to him. He has to continue to move farther and farther right to try and court these extreme fringe folks who are going to give him money, are going to support him. He has to be more overt, because for MAGA, the only answer is becoming more extreme. It's a sign of their desperation. It's definitely a sign of JD Vance's desperation. So I don't want you to freak out when you hear a CNN story or somebody else that's like, JD Vance is polling first for the 2028 presidential primaries. Cool. The other options given were Nikki Haley and Tulsi Gabbard. America doesn't want to vote for a woman. Conservative America doesn't want to vote for a woman. And even so, those two women got almost 20% of the support in this poll. What I do want you to really focus on is the fact that this is very much a distraction from the 2026 midterms. We have to focus on the midterms. There's no point in talking about Gavin Newsom versus AOC in the Democratic primary, or JD Vance or whoever in the Republican primary for 2028. We got to get through the midterms, y'all. Let that be your area of focus. Focus on the primaries where you are. Get involved. Don't be scared of JD Vance and whatever pathetic maneuvering he's doing now. Remember, it's not so much what they do, it's what we're doing. We have a task. We have a path laid out in front of us. We have work that we need to be engaged in, and we can't get distracted freaking out about the Republican presidential primaries in 2028. Let's focus on the midterms now, because we have an awful lot of work to do to reclaim the House and maybe the Senate.